Kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to today's webinar, Navigating Skill Shortages, Predictive Indicators and Real-Time Data Insights. My name is Daniel Ledbetter. I'm the VP of APAC Operations here, and I'm happily joined today by Mauro Palutki, our Head of Global Data Science.
Thank you, Daniel, and welcome everyone.
Nice. Thank you, Mauro. So Mauro is great to have Mauro with us today. Mauro is a senior data scientist and big data engineer responsible for the design of the real-time labor market information systems and skill requirements for Centrefop. He also works as head of our global data science at Lightcast with the goal of developing innovative models, methods, and deployments of labor market data. And I don't understand where you find the time, Mauro, but you're also lecturing at University of Milano in big data and computer engineering. So glad to have someone with such a caliber here today to describe his research, as I'm sure, Mauro, you'll do a much better job of explaining what you've been doing than I can on those technical details. So today we'll be going through a few things with us. Firstly, I'll be talking a little bit about why skill shortages matter and some of the research that we've been conducting on this topic. We'll then look at how some of our data can help start addressing these skill gaps, and a little bit about us for those who might not be so familiar with Lightcast and our data. I'll be then handing over to Mauro for those technical details as we discuss through the paper that he's written. And we'll then turn at the end towards the local Australian context and how that works in terms of the possibilities of applying this methodology to the local context, as well as a fantastic new dashboard resource that we've put together. If you do have any questions, please ask them in the chat. We'll get to them either on the call or if we run out of time, we'll respond to those via email after the fact. And before I get lots of questions in the chat, yes, a recording will be available after the webinar, and it is more than shareable across your colleagues who may not have been able to make it today. So, skill shortages matter, and I'm sure with the audience we have today, you all understand exactly why they matter. But how do we know where they are? And how do we know what we can do about these things in a more real-time environment? Employers and policymakers frequently cite skill shortages as constraints to economic growth, with many policy levers being pulled to help address these. It feels like every week here in New Zealand, we get a new news story saying that we need more teachers, we need more nurses, we need more IT people. There is a lot of pressure to get this right. And everyone tends to look at the government as the source of not getting this right, rightly or wrongly. The challenge is that skill shortages don't have a robust or measurable definition for us to work for. Is it in shortage because there's a local shortage, a national shortage, or a global shortage? And what do we mean by shortage? Is it a good thing that we need these skills and have market incentives to be bringing people into that area? Is it not? Who knows? Preferred measures and current measures are usually based on surveying employer perceptions. And that's certainly the case with the VSA's recent report, where they're using, among other data sources, survey responses to help guide which ones are in shortage and not. However, surveys tend to be very expensive and are always by nature backwards looking. They're better at telling us broadly about where we've been and not where we are potentially going. The premise of today's webinar then is, can online job postings, we're going to abbreviate that as OJP for sake of use, be used to help predict cases of perceived skill shortages? To frame this in a different way, and to borrow the HR motto, the right people at the right time and the right skills employed required to push the successful company forwards, how do we do that at a large economy level? So how do we go from the right people at a company to the right skills and the right quantity at the right locations at the right time to achieve sustainable economic prosperity for all? What would the market look like if we got this right? Well, firstly, we can see that things are likely to only get worse in the near future. Recently, we released a report called The Gathering Storm, looking at demographic shifts across the world. The report mainly focused on the US, however, the insights can be applied to most Western countries. In this report, we find things like, and in the US, we have a number of occupations where the average age of the people working those occupations is nearing retirement age. At some point, there's going to be a crunch. This is particularly true in occupations such as teachers, where we know, especially in the New Zealand context, that the average teaching age is getting older, and at some point there will be a significant and acute skill shortage within that occupation. The other thing we're finding is post-COVID, the labour participation rates have declined. We see going across, when COVID hit, that obviously declined rapidly. We had a bit of a boost as people got back onto the frontline work. However, that rate hasn't returned to its historical average. And whether that will or not is up in the air. We have to work with the data we have today. One of the 8 nations that we often think about when we're thinking about skill shortages is Japan, who is already grappling with this problem of demographics. We see for a number of their projected needs a declining trend in the number of people actually able to do that job. Japan's a bit of a special case potentially because of their migration settings, but at some point they're going to have they're already grappling with a large shock to their economies based on the number of workers available. Adding into this context is, and based on some previous work we've done with BCG, we know that the market is evolving really quickly. So not only do we have fewer people, but the people working in the jobs need to be constantly adapting and evolving their skill set to match the requirements of those occupations. We found over a 5-year period from 2016 to 2021 that the average occupation was changed by 37% in terms of the skills and demand for that role, with the most disrupted changing just over 3/4 of their skills. If we can't keep up with that level of change and the pace of change, and we've got fewer people working in those areas to begin with, skill shortages are only going to become more and more acute as we go. This is a growing problem. We also find that some occupations change a lot more than others. Mystery shoppers, cool. They're pretty much stable as we've found in our research. However, occupations that are pushing the needle forwards, often data engineers, industrial organizational people, etc., those roles are changing really rapidly and a lot more than the average. Adding to this backdrop, yet again, we have AI skills demand and job postings changing quite a lot. Now, I'm sure you're all sick of hearing that AI is going to come for all of our jobs and that it's going to disrupt everything. However, what we're finding in the data is, yes, it is coming. The wave is still building. And we find that across the globe, those job postings are increasing rapidly. Australia is here, where we've moved quite significantly, and significantly more than New Zealand. Poor New Zealand down the bottom. And it's not just IT jobs we're finding, right? So we're finding that IT growth, that AI growth is affecting jobs across sectors, where we've got, yes, IT and communication jobs, but also education, health, construction jobs being affected. Coming specifically to the Australian context, we find that while the work is being disrupted most heavily in IT roles currently, we are seeing things like product managers creeping in, salespeople needing AI skills now. This is likely to be reflected more broadly in the global context in the very near future. So how do we address these skill gaps? We now know the problem, but how do we start solving it? Or how have we traditionally looked to solve it? Typically, we can push our solving strategies 2 ways, either building against the problem or buying against the problem. building in terms of education and policy, or buying in terms of immigration settings being relaxed. However, building against these shortages is actually really hard and tricky. One of the things we found with a recent demographic report is that we're building a lot of people, but there's a big market misalignment against the type of skills we're building. We tend to be building graduates, which is university graduates, which is absolutely fantastic for lots of social reasons. However, we're finding that the market needs a lot more trades or jobs that don't require a bachelor's to attend them. Further, we're finding that our rate of replacements, thinking at a biological sense, is a lot lower than what we need in terms of growing our economy. If our social contract is based on the younger generations supporting the older generations, we're about to have a problem. And this is why we call these reports the gathering storm, right? The other problem we have is buying out of skill shortages. Now, we're finding in the US, for example, that the share of foreign-born workers per roles is increasing dramatically. Now, not necessarily a problem. However, we find across the globe, this can be problematic in terms of the politics of the situation. And I recognize in Australia, we've just changed many policy settings to try and combat things like house pricing, which is a run-on effect of migration. Now, rightly or wrongly, that's up for you to decide, but migration can be a definite hot potato when we do these things. So how can we achieve change? If occupations are being disrupted, and skill demand within occupations is rapidly evolving, and demographic trends are indicating an increasingly constricted labor supply, how can we address these problems of skill shortages? How can we go to the right skills and the right quantity and the right location at the right time to achieve sustainable economic prosperity for all? Well, firstly, I would say we should start with some great data. We should start with real-time insights from today's market. We should also look at a broad cross-section of employer voices. Surveys tend to ask the same people often, and getting a representative sample is greatly expensive. We should also look for the most granular data possible. Often we talk about migration settings, for example, at the occupation level. How do we move that conversation to saying occupations and skills to recognize how fast occupations are changing, so we're bringing in the right people in terms of their skill sets to address the local market needs? Well, that's where Lightcast comes in, hopefully. So a little bit about us, if you've not heard about us before. Our mission is to unlock new possibilities in the labour market, and we do that in a number of ways. We work with a number of sectors, from education providers, where we work in Australia, for example, with the majority of universities. We work with communities. So how do we create a more efficient programs for economic prosperity? And we work directly with employers as well, looking at how do we understand the future trends and how do we help your productivity rise and using a skills lens. We do this by using real-time data and turning these to actionable insights. Few little things about us. We're a DAS company, which is fantastic. We like to talk about ourselves as the oil suppliers in this area, right? Where we supply the data to help analysis drive forwards. How do we do this? Well, the data we'll talk to mainly today is our job postings data. Here we construct this using sourcing spiders, where we scroll the web for job postings. In Australia, for example, we have 3,500 or more sources of data, so nice robust sampling. We bring those back and we pass those data points out. We do some quality filtering to that data set because the internet is full of noise and terrors and all sorts of things we do not want in our data set. Even if it's on a job board, you'll be surprised. We deduplicate, so we are not double counting the same opportunity over and over again. And we produce a final data set where we have a clear understanding of the vacancies and opportunities in the market. We do this around the world. and where we have very strong and deep data sets in nations like Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, the UK, US, and Canada, and emerging data sets in a number of other countries, including places like Europe, which is fantastic. Thanks, Mauro. Fantastic. Most importantly, we also maintain a skills taxonomy. So where a lot of organizations will use an occupation taxonomy, we have one of those too. We also are able to do this granular work at the skills level. What this allows us to do is to track things like sustainable energy skills through different levels and across the market over time. This skills taxonomy applies globally as well, so we're able to track and directly compare things like what is the demand for sustainable energy skills and what does that skill profile look like in New South Wales or Australia versus Copenhagen or Los Angeles. So what can this all tell us? Well, we've got greater speed, granularity, and timeliness compared to survey-based instruments. Because of that speed and detail, the data is more actionable. We can do things now. We're not looking 3 years behind us to try and work out what we want to do tomorrow. We're looking 3 days, which is fantastic, which is great. In addition, job postings provide insights into real-world skills demand. It's not a survey, it's what did you actually put in your job postings in aggregate, so we can then look at it at the community overall. And with that spiel completed, I will hand over to my technical colleague, Mauro, who will work us through some of the specifics about what he has achieved with this data on this topic. Thanks, Mauro.
Thank you, Daniel, for your beautiful introduction and your beautiful explanation about the context. I will start from a presentation of this free report, where we study with several European and global organizations the evolution of this phenomenon, so the skills shortage. So today I will go in detail and I try to not go to technical detail because we have Daniel here with me, so I don't want to go more in the technical details. But if you want to go in the technical training of the model, so what we physically did really technical, you can use the link that is in red in this slide because the report is available. And of course, we work with different organizations that has the scope to try to anticipate the skill shortage. Because so it's really important to try to understand what are the dimensions, what are the metrics that we can use to try to explain what is happening now and anticipate the skill need, the occupation need of the employer for the next years. And today I will try to explain the methodology that we used. I will use to do it an European case because we tested the model on the Italian context and the UK context. But could be easy to repeat the methodology that we used and apply it also in our context. And what also you can do is not to apply to the entire country. Today, to go more faster, we'll go in detail to the country situation. But if you have a local data with the feature of the job posting data that Daniel explained a few seconds ago, so the granularity, you can also go in detail about a local context, a local region, a local city, or a particular context about the sector. But let me start about the intuition. Of course, the intuition is something obvious, and I think everyone here knows that the employers declare their perception about the skill shortage using survey. We do it in Europe, in Italy, UK. I think you also do it in Australia and New Zealand. And of course, these surveys are really good because from this survey, we can have a sample of the data and we can understand what is the perception of the employer, what are the occupations that they are declaring more difficulty to fill. But of course, these data are usually in late because when we have it, we have a skill shortage. So the intuition is can we use big data, the online job posting data, because we have a long time series starting from 2012 to try to explain, let me to say, with some anticipation of the skill shortage. And of course, what we try to use are different dimensions and different metrics that we can collect from the job posting data, like the salary, the duration of the posting online, the mix of the different skill, to try then to explain what we collect with the survey. And of course, it's possible to do it because we can combine conventional data coming from a survey from data coming from the web or online data. Why? Because usually survey are using taxonomy, and using machine learning model, we can extract from the job posting data occupation skills according to standard taxonomy. Okay, so it's possible to do it, and we can use this taxonomy as a bridge to combine conventional data and skills and the job posting data. Of course, so the exercise is not about the prediction of the future skill shortage. It's try to observe in a different way the current situation to understand what is happening and to anticipate the skill need, the occupation need. But let me to go a little more in detail. So the starting point for us in Europe was the skill shortage survey. We started from two examples that are equivalent. So we found the same survey in the UK and in Italy. The only difference was about the granularity. In UK, we surveyed coming from the ONS is about the employer skill survey. It starting in 2013 to 2022, and they are using the UK standard occupation classification taxonomy for the occupation. And from this survey, we collected more or less 1,000 data points. And is a survey where there is a specific question for the employers about the difficult to fill for an occupation. We had the same, and we have the same in Italy. It's a monthly based survey coming from the Chamber of Commerce in Italy, and they are using not an international taxonomy, but a local taxonomy called classification of profession, CP in Italian. And it is a taxonomy with more or less 800 different occupations. So we have more granularity in Italy. It is because the sample about the outcome is more big. We have 2.3 more or less observation. But the two surveys are equivalent because what they are asking to the employers are a specific question about the skill shortage. The question is, so are you in difficult to hire this type of occupation, and why? It's a question, so the issue about the skills, or you have other type of issue. These are Italian data coming from this survey. So as you can see, from 2023, we have a number from 0 to 1, that is the difficulty to fill, for the specific occupation. And as you can see, it's really granular because we have data entry clerks, we have machine operators in the different industry contexts. We have manager and profession coming from different type of organization because we have the general directors, we have the supply and chain and distribution directors. As you can see, for each single occupation, we have a number from 0 to 1. This number is our target. So what we would like to do with a machine learning approach is try to predict this number. And then, as a data scientist, I'm not interested to the prediction in this case, but to the dimension that are able to explain the prediction. In a technical terms, we call it information gain. What is the information gain that we will measure? The capacity of the dimension to explain then the phenomenon. So what we did is try to mix different type of dimension coming from the online job posting data, because we have this dimension really granular, is a feature of the big data. We linked the data from this survey, so the 0 to 1 for each single occupation and each single year, and then we try to train a model, okay? Of course, it was not easy because we didn't test one single model. We tested different models and so on to try to select the best model. And then what we did is not to predict the next skill shortage, but to understand what are the dimensions used by the model to try to run the prediction. And we used this metric that is called information gain. Let me to go a little more in detail because, as you can see, the methodology is easy. It's not something complex where we are using tons of neural networks and so on. So we started from the sources, in this case, the survey, and we mixed the survey with the job posting. The link about the from the conventional data to the job posting are only two dimensions. The first active year of the job posting and the year of the survey and the occupation. Of course, we insert a little lag inside the link because we wanted to explain the skill shortage measured now in 2023 or in 2022 with the job posting data that we collected before. So what we did it was to insert a lag about the two time series. We tested a different leg, and then we arrived to the model training. During the model training, it was easy, not complex, because we didn't have tons of data. We aggregated the data at the occupation level. We tested a different model because then the goal was to take the best model about the capacity to run the prediction. And then we used the model to understand the feature more important about the phenomenon that we would like to observe, the skill shortage. Let me to show you what are the results. First of all, I will explain the feature used because we tested more than 52 different features. Of course, the main topic are about the volume of job vacancy for a single occupation, the growth of this job posting data in the different years for the different occupation. Of course, we tested the duration. The duration, is obvious because if the job posting stay open in the web more days, it means that the employer is in difficult to hire, generally speaking. Of course, what we did is not only to use the number of days. Okay, so we tested the entire distribution from a statistical point of view. We tested the job posting that stay open really more, okay, and the job posting that stay open in median with the average job posting. And we did the same for the salary. So the intuition is if the employer would like to pay more to fill a specific occupation, it may be something. Okay, so it means something. Let me to say, and we did the same. We studied the distribution of the salary. We know that the salary often is not present in the job posting, but I think in Europe we are the worst case. In Italy, is present only the 2% of the time. So, and of course, what we did is try to clean the data and arrive to a situation where the data were really good. It's possible to do it because we have a granular data. And then, but not least, we tested the distribution of the skill. Why? Because from the taxonomy that Daniel explained a few minutes ago, we can stratify the skills according to the type, so common, digital, or specialized skill, according to the category, if they are ICT skill, business skill, analytics skill, and we tested a different type of share about the skill in the job posting data. And then what we did is try to measure the ability of the model. I will not go in detail about this number. Of course, so if you want to chat, so feel free to use the chat. If you want to go in detail about the two different model, of course, we can do it offline. You can use the report because it's published. But giving me the possibility to explain only two numbers. We ran two tests. One, it was a model able to predict the number, so 0 to 1. And as you can see, across UK and Italy, we found a good result. We use, I'm saying good because I am watching the R square. The R square, from a statistical point of view, is the metric that you can use to understand if the model can explain the phenomenon or not. It means that the UK, using job posting data, we are able to explain the 81% of the skill shortage. That is a very good metric. In Italy, only the 41%. Why we have this different? It's about a different culture, different labor market. In Italy, for example, we have occupations that are regulated. So, if you want to do this job in the market, you need to be part to a formal registry. In UK, maybe not. So these different topics are not coming from the job posting data. So from the job posting data, we are able to explain the 41% of the phenomenon in Italy and the 81 on average in UK. But it's a good number overall. And then we tested the model able to explain true or false, to predict, true or false. What mean that from the model, with an input of the job posting data, we are able to say, yes, this occupation, it will be difficult to fill in the future. No, this occupation, it was fine. And again, the results are good. So the model that we used is good because the precision is quite overall very high. So from 70% UK, where we have less data to train the model, from 93% in 99% in Italy, where we have more data because the occupation classification is more granular. Of course, are good number from a statistical point of view, but I would like to go to this slide because here we have the feature. So the chart are not so great from Daniel, I know, sorry Daniel, but from a statistical point of view are relevant. Here we have the information gain. We have the information gain, so the more important feature able to explain the prediction. Okay, as you can see in Italy and UK, both of the models, so the regression model, the first one and the second one, are using more or less the same dimension. We have the median duration, the median salary, the mix of skill. Watch this one. The specialized skill are able to, so the job specific skill are able to anticipate the skill shortage. So maybe you are putting the chat now that is obvious. Yes, it's obvious, but we have a metric here. We have 76%. We know what is the information gain of a single metric, and of course, what is impossible to explain that we can go in detail about the specific occupation because having the granularity of a job posting, we can measure the duration, the salary, and the mix of skill, not only global level, country level, regional level, but we can go in detail about a single occupation. These are data coming from Italy, so sorry about it, but I have this data. And as you can see, for the mechanics and the assembler, so or middle skill occupation, and as you can see, what you can use to anticipate and to observe the skill shortage is the salary and the duration of the posting, because the skill mix is important, but not so high. If we go to a managerial occupation, for example, the supply and distribution director and manager, the situation is changing. Of course, the duration and the salary are metrics that you can use and you can observe it, but what you can also use is the skill mix, okay? For this type of occupation, the job-specific skill, the digital skill, and the transversal skill, the common skill, are three dimensions that are really important to monitor, okay? Because if the skill mix will be not so good, maybe you will have a skill shortage in the future. So, as you can see, what you can do using this approach is not only to monitor the situation year by year, month by month, at regional level, but you can also go in detail about the single occupation. And what you can do is to create this sort of, let me to say, framework about the skill shortage. This is coming from the previous slide about mechanics and assembler. And as you can see, what we can do is try to communicate what is happening using this framework to try to inform the policymakers and the education provider about the different metrics, so the salary, the duration, the skill mix, And using the big data, using online job posting data, you can go in detail about the specific skill required. Because if you have a specific skill, you can design tailored and focused training program to try to fill the gap, let me to say. Let me to conclude very quickly with the findings. So, of course, we confirm the theoretical expectation. It's obvious the duration of the posting, the job-specific skill, the salary are good metrics to try to monitor the labor market and to create a labor market intelligence system. And you can use it to anticipate the skill shortage. It's obvious, but now we have a number. And we using data from two different countries, UK and Italy, we confirmed that the methodology is good and you can apply methodology also in other countries. The online job posting data are a good set of data to try to create labor market intelligence system because the result of the model are 81% about a very square, 99 for the precision of the model. So we have good metric at the end of the model. And of course, from an education provider point of view and a policymaker, what do you need is try to use this data to, from the policymaker point of view, to create a policy to attract talent, to, let me to say, create a sort of link between employers and job seeker. From an education provider point of view, the message is that usually, often, the job-specific skill are the key. So maybe you need to start to create targeted educational program that are focused on a specific skill set, because in this case, we can try to anticipate and resolve the issue. Of course, to do it, you need the large posting data, because finally, the model performance is really encouraging. So we have good data. We found what are more or less the high dimension that you need to observe, but what is really important is also the applicability of the model. What do you need to use this type of methodology is, of course, to start from the online job data from one point of view. You need to find a survey, if you want to apply the same methodology, that able to measure the skill shortage in the past, because then you can apply the same methodology not only country level, but also regional level. And if you don't have the survey data, you can start to use the observation that we did in UK and Italy and try to use some dashboard, some data set to try to follow and monitor what is happening in your local country. We did a test in this context with Daniel, and for example, we apply it to a region in Australia. It is a region, right, Daniel? Sorry. The New South Wales.
New South Wales, my friend.
Okay, is a region. I don't know.
It's a
Okay.
state. Hello to all of our New South Wales audience. Mauro's knowledge of geography is just as good as my knowledge of the Italian geography. So yes, very good. Sorry, Mauro.
Yes, sorry, Daniel, sorry, it's a state. So what we did is, of course, to create a simple exercise about a labor market intelligence system based on online job posting data. We started from conventional data. I didn't do it, but I need to say that the online job posting data are not a replacement about of conventional data. Conventional data are important because, as you can see, the starting point, we can observe in the state of the New South Wales what is the employment rate, how the population is stratified, and of course are really good metric to start. But of course, if we use the online job posting data, we can understand what is the situation across your state and understand where we have more job posting and less job posting. Is a snapshot about the data, and we can update it generally after each day, after each month. Job posting data are in real time. And of course, what we can do is then go in detail about in the last month, what are the occupation that are more in demand or less in demand, and what is changing more. As you can see, if I watch the data in the state, I see that the project management skill, finance skill, marketing are really requested, but also the occupation. We have marketing professional, sales representative, and of course, there is a starting point because then we can go in detail about the occupation and the skill that are really difficult to fill. What we did here, it was to apply the observation coming from UK, Italy. We had also example at the regional level in Italy or in Spain, and we created this index, difficult to fill, that is now. Okay, it is not a prediction. We are using the data now, the contemporary data, because we use the duration of the posting and the salary to try to observe what are the more difficult to fill now occupation and skills. So it's another way to use the online job posting data. In this case, I'm not anticipating because I'm observing now. But of course, using this data, you can start to design new policy or new education program.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know, Daniel, if you wanted to add something.
yeah, just to make that really explicit. So this dashboard Maldo has put together, we've built on a e-impact platform, which means it is shareable. We've put a link in the chat for you to explore this on your own. And it gives a really good example about using some of these insights and using this methodology, as explained by Maldo, to really get into the granular level of skill shortages. We've kept this analysis at the New South Wales level, which is already more granular than potentially some other analysis. But we could go right down to Sydney or Dubbo or any other areas of New South Wales at that level, as long as the data is rich enough to support analysis there, right? I'm not suggesting we could do this analysis in the outback of the Northern Territories. There's not that much data for that region. However, if the data is available, this gives us a really, really powerful insight into the local specifics of that local market. At scale as well, right? So we're doing this in real time without needing to get people on the phone responding to surveys and the issues that approach can bring with it. Okay. Look, Maldo, thank you very much for that great level of detail. Look, we've had some questions coming through, and I've had some questions of my own to ask as well. So apologies for the audience about stealing some time. But a couple of questions for technical ones first, right? So firstly, when you were describing the model as you're going through, you mentioned that there was a lag that you added to the data between survey responses and job postings data. For the analysts playing at home and to help shortcut that work, what was that lag, if you could share that, please? How many
Yes,
days?
obvious. So we used, for example, the job posting data of 2021 linked to the survey data of 2022. Okay, because of course what we did is try to understand the capability, the power, let me to say, of the online job posting data to anticipate the skill shortage of the next year. How it
Yeah.
was possible? Because in UK we had the data from 2013 to 2022, in Italy from 2017 to 2023, and we have a long time series about the job posting data, so it's possible to test a different scenario. I mentioned 1 year, 22 to predict the 23, but also we tested the 21, 23, 20, 23 to try to understand the different situation.
Nice. So, would it be fair to say then is using this methodology with job postings, we can predict things a year ahead of what survey results would predict?
Yes, correct. So if you have a more long-term series, is more good.
Yeah.
We had the issue in Europe about 2020, to be honest, because, for example, we didn't use the data from the online job posting data or for the survey from the 2020 because it was too noised, and so we remove this type of data. What we observed, it was that if you have at least 5 years of data, is good. So it's possible.
Nice. That's, I think, an incredibly useful takeaway that we could be predicting these things forward rather than backwards,
Yes.
right?
We have also an
Um,
example, Daniel, sorry to interrupt you. Regional level, I know that you don't know. Emilia-Romagna in Italy. Emilia-Romagna is a region in the center of Italy, famous
mhm.
for Ferrari, Lamborghini,
Ah.
lasagne, okay? Something that maybe you know. And we are working with them since 2021 with this approach, okay? And the result every year is a dashboard that the education provider can use to improve the programs, to understand what is happening, but is also policy. So every year, what they are doing, you can find the reference online. What they are doing every year is to write a policy about the occupation and the skill more difficult to fill, and then the government, the regional government, try to help the employers and the education provider to fill this gap.
Nice. So, and just to unpack that, then, so we've already got government institutions using this approach successfully. Wow. All right.
Correct.
I was not aware of that. That's awesome, man. Another question then. Would you advocate for a different model for occupations that require more than a bachelor's versus less than a bachelor's, all those middle skilled occupations? Because you were mentioning that you had different results for distribution managers versus mechanics.
Yes. So it was not, let me to return to the slide. This one. So it's not mean that we cannot apply the model to occupation coming from a different level of skill or different requirement about education. What I would like to share with you that the metrics are different. So, for example, the supply distribution director and manager, what the model suggested is the salary and the duration are not a good predictor for the skill shortage. You need to use the skills, okay? For middle skill occupation, mechanics and assembler, from a model point of view, the skill are not important. The model to predict the skill shortage is using more the salary and is using more the duration, okay? That means something from an education point of view, in my opinion, okay, about the skill that we need to put in a program and so on, and about the policy that we need also to write.
Okay. Very good. Look, just aware of time, so I've just sneaking in a few more questions. From the work, I see that there's good alignment between survey measures and using job postings data for this. Were there any occupations that were indicated in skill shortage using job postings that were not reflected in survey measures? And if so, what were those, and what does this suggest about using job postings data into the future?
Yes, sorry, could you repeat, Daniel? I lost.
Yeah. So, did you find any? So, to simplify and to paraphrase, so apologies for the person asking the question, but apologies. Did you find any occupations using job postings measures that you didn't find that weren't represented in survey measures that were indicative that they were in shortage? So, did you find anything using job postings that were in shortage that weren't reflected in survey data?
So if I got your question, so the question from a participant, so of course the job posting data cannot cover everything, because so we have a bias in the online job posting data only because not all the employers are using online job posting data. Let me to share the case of Italy. For example, in Italy, if we watch the agriculture sector or the classical agriculture occupation, we are the country of the food, okay? But we are not able to find this type of data. It's not mean that, let me to say, food company are not using online job posting data. It's dependent by the occupation. Of course, this type of employer, of course, are looking for supply and chain director, marketing professional, ICT guys, and so on. And you can use this data also in this context. At the regional level, what is important, I think, is to stratify and use the data by the single supply chain. You can use your ledger posting data to do it because one of the feature of the ledger posting data is the job description. So what you can use is a set of keywords to define a specific supply chain, automotive, I don't know, food, beverage, and you can go in detail about the specific supply chain. And what you can do is to measure what are the skill. So also if the occupation are not mentioned because maybe it's not a good channel in this case of language posting data, but you have it in the survey. What you can use is to create this set of different supply chain data from the language posting data, and then you can then link the skills.
So using those skill links, I think, is the a really interesting takeaway here, right? Recognizing that often we're using kind of blunt ANSCO measures here, right? So is this occupation in shortage? But actually moving towards yes, the occupation, but actually we can see the specific skills that are linking these through, which are in shortage, I think is a really interesting potential way forward here. Look, final question, and I think you've kind of answered it, but a good one to kind of finish on is: do you think that in the future, taking a job posting approach to skill shortage work will complement, enhance, or replace traditional measures such as surveys?
So, good question. So, first of all, my personal opinion as a data scientist, online job posting data, big data, will never replace conventional data. Okay, so I'm working this sector since 22 years, and I prefer to use both the approach. Of course, conventional data survey are really expensive, and often it's difficult to ask granular data. So we can ask for an occupation if it is difficult to fill or not. We cannot ask for a specific skill for a set of skill. It's really difficult because from a survey is you don't know what type of person will reply. I don't know if the responder will be real, someone inside the HR that knows about occupational skill, or someone else. So it's really difficult to go in detail. What I prefer, Daniel, is always to use a combined approach. If you don't have survey data, you can starting from focus group. It's not important to have a formal survey. For example, what we did is to create a focus group with employers and education provider, 1 hour of meeting, 2 hour of meeting, where you can collect some feedback, qualitative data from them, and then you can use this type of feedback with our job posting data. Okay, it's possible to do it? Yes, of course. So in this case, it's not a replacement about a conventional approach. The skill foresight approach has a long history, okay? So in this case, more a skill foresight approach, where if you have a survey data, you can use it. If not, you can use this focus group and chat with the employers about your issue, and then you can combine this qualitative data with the granularity of the job posting data.
In other words, you could use the job postings data to help target your survey efforts as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, because if you want to run a survey, I repeat, it's really expensive. It's really
Yeah.
expensive, and it is quite wide. Maybe you can reduce the cost and reduce also the effort to fill the survey using the online job posting data. From the online job posting data, we can monitor now what are the skill more difficult to fill using the duration. You can grab a business set of skill and design a specific survey to try to confirm the evidence, okay? To try to understand what is happening with the survey. It is another approach, okay? Yes.
Very good. Look, very aware of time. We're well over. So thank you for staying with us, guys, and thank you for the fantastic information, Maldo. Just to wrap up, then, a couple of things. So, number one, there's a link to this dashboard in the chat. So please feel free to access that, and we'll also include a link that you can share with your colleagues after this webinar. Within this deck as well, you'll also find a number of links to some of our research. It's well worth checking it out, as we've referenced a lot of papers in this webinar. And if you'd like to deep dive into some of these, we have things like our Global AI Skills Outlook. We have a digital skills outlook. That's a great way to collect some of the local insights. There is data specifically to Australia and Singapore and New Zealand in this report. And as always, if you'd like any more information, please feel free to reach out. I'm over in New Zealand, so much easier to contact, but also Maldo's there as well. And though he might rue that I'm saying this, please feel free to email us out, and we can help potentially with some of your approaches if you're looking at this data as well. Thank you for joining us. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you, Maldo, for taking the time to chat to us, and look forward to doing this again soon.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you to the participant.
Thank you. Cheers.